GM, so shorts are getting squeezed. We're getting above key options levels for the Deribit OpEx tomorrow. Question is, how far can smart money push this short squeeze? How much juice is left? Well, I'll dive into that in today's video. First of all, Bitcoin, weekly chart. We're bouncing from that 100-week EMA that I told you guys was a likely place for us to bounce from. And if we saw the close above, that should lead to bulls having some control. And we're getting a green start to the week so far. It's been very nice. If you guys are in my private group, you will know we are absolutely printing right now. So I sold all of my Bitcoin cycle bags at 121.1K on August. But I've now started to reallocate some of that cash. So last week, I told you guys my order for a 10% allocation at 86K. Then that filled and I made an order for a 15% allocation at 82K. Then that filled and I'm now 25% in Bitcoin, 75% in cash. And those buys are looking pretty healthy in the green right now. And one thing to mention is if we do get a squeeze up straight to 100K or 110K, there's a chance that due to the price behavior and the nature of it looking like a short squeeze, maybe I take some profits and turn those long-term portfolio allocations into a swing trade. Because it's always the spot portfolio, those bigger buys that can make some of your biggest returns of the year. So very nice to have bought deep into this wick, made some allocations at a clear demand zone at the 100-week EMA, following the plan from the super cycle video I made for you guys on that monthly outlook, following the plan from all those weekly outlook videos. Patience. And now patience is rewarding. And I'm in a very good position now, like many of you who have been following me, where if we go lower, then we just continue buying more because we have that cash on the side. And if we go higher, then the 25% allocation on Bitcoin is going to be absolutely printing. We can take leverage trades as well in between to profit more. So either way, whether price goes up or down, we've got a plan, we've got a strategy, and that's how you have to be as a trader. So much clarity in that, guys. A lot of alpha in that. If you read between the lines and dig a little deeper into what I just said there. But anyway, looking at the charts, monthly chart. So we've got the monthly close coming up in 3 days now. Then we're actually coming back into December. So monthly candle so far looks to be forming what could be a higher low. So bit of hopium for the bulls here. Is this now just going to be higher low before new highs? I mean, who knows? There's so many ways this can play out, but that's a decent reaction off that wick right there. That's what you want to see. Some demand come in at the previous demand zone. So it's going to be interesting to see where this candle closes in 3 days' time. But so far, a pretty decent reaction. The fact that it is potentially just another higher low here. Whether that stands or not, I'm not sure. But I think that at least shows demand and is the reason why we can actually see squeezes. We can see the market move up. And this is what I've been telling you guys on the YouTube. I said 2 days ago, are bears in danger soon? The reversal signals I'm watching. Well, this is exactly what is playing out. We're getting this reversal. And I told you guys with the huge ETF outflow day, 900 million, they typically are around local bottoms. And if it's a high inflow day, they're typically around local tops. As simple as that. So since that day, we zoom into the daily now, we have reversed. So big ETF outflow day on Thursday. And then on Friday, we got what I've been talking about for a while, a capitulation for selling, which was seen through high volume, big wick lower, didn't finish green, so not the most bullish, but still nonetheless a bullish candle and a reversal candle, which is now leading to said reversal, said short squeeze. It's as simple as that, really. And as I've been mentioning, I'm expecting price to be in one of these 3 areas, either here, and we need to sweep again later on, but not before a bounce, or here, and we need to sweep again later on, but again, not before a bounce, or maybe we're here, maybe the bottom is in, who knows. But all the signs were there for a local bottom and a squeeze up, and that's exactly what is playing out. And I've been telling you guys this on every YouTube video. Also, in the private group, I mentioned to you guys couple days ago now how open interest was declining, price has been rising, so it's clearly a short squeeze. Shorts are closing on net since that Friday capitulation candle. You've got the CVD, cumulative volume delta, on futures declining, whereas the spot is inclining. So that was a divergence. That shows spot were actually in control because price was going up and respecting the spot CVD bid, putting those bulls in control, and all of the shorting on futures wrong. And when they're wrong, they're offside and they have to close, and that fuels a further rally. And you have Deribit OpEx, 90k is a key level, so getting above 90k is one of the reasons for the squeeze, as well as many other reasons like the fact that we entered the high risk to reward zone that I've been mentioning to you guys on YouTube. It's just a simple area to be buying, and that's why I've been saying longs are high risk to reward, because when we now take a look at the order flow, what we can clearly see here is this red line, so futures cumulative volume delta, had this huge divergence. It was actually over here, so red line, as you can see, went down, made a new low, whereas the green line, spot CVD, actually made a higher low. Divergence, this went down, whereas spot CVD went up. And all important is, of course, what price does in reaction. Remember, price first, price is king. Price also went up, so price respected the spot bid. Price disrespected the perp shorting, so now the perp shorts, they get wrecked, and you see that with open interest, falling. This is positions closing, and shorts closing leads to them pushing the market higher because they're getting out of their positions. So that's why you're seeing this rally, that's why you're seeing this short squeeze. And if we go into lower time frames, what you can now see here is continuation of that. Even you got perp CVD shorting in this recent consolidation here, and you got spot CVD staying flat with a marginal new high, and open interest is just gradually rising. So definitely some shorting going on here, some people trying to hedge, trying to push the market lower, and you got spot trying to push the market higher. So if you keep making new highs and you keep respecting price action going higher and not breaking structure levels, and you expect continuation higher. You expect price to keep squeezing. It's only when you see perp CVD start massively ramping up and going way higher while spot CVD kind of stays flat or even down, where you're seeing, okay, leverage longs are now entering. Now the FOMO's entering. And that's what can lead to your reversal sign. So while you're seeing the spot bid lead and price respect it, expect continuation higher. As soon as you see a reversal sign and this changing and it's actually perps leading the market on the long side, then that's when you can see the reversal begin to form. But as always, price first is most important. So when we look at those levels, look at the market. So it's Deribit OpEx wall at 90k. Of course, we had the Yubit OpEx wall at 50, which was at 88.2k. Very important level. Notice how set a trap above it, went below, respected, then blasted through it, and that's led to continuation higher. Blasted above 90k, that's led to continuation higher. Because all the market makers with puts at 90k, which expire tomorrow, by the way, 8 a.m. Friday, if we're above 90k by then, they get wrecked. They're in the red. So that's why as soon as price goes above 90k, they have to cover. They have to hedge their positions. Otherwise, they're naked short, which is what they call it. And that's not what you want to be in an options, because the losses are unlimited. So there's going to be some dynamics coming into OpEx Friday, 8 a.m. It's going to get weird, and you can see really one of two things. You can either see today bulls really capitalize and they make another new high and just keep pushing price up, and then there'll probably be some attempt to push it lower at Friday 8 a.m. But if price action before was strong and volume was rising as price was rising, then you're likely going to stay above there. That's one scenario. Another scenario is if we don't see much strength today, then there's probably going to be an attempt to push price below 90k by 8 a.m. UTC. Whether they can actually push it below and close it below or not, that's another question. But you've got some very inorganic dynamics right now that are going to be present as we head into this Friday OpEx. And I've been mentioning that for some time now. This is trade setup I'm looking at, I mentioned the other day. But what I'm actually looking for is this chart here. So potentially you see a good long opportunity if we actually see that push below at 8 a.m. on Friday. So it's not this Friday, it's actually over here. So if we see the push below and then we reclaim, that's when you can potentially see, okay, all the people who are pushing price below 90k, they've got no incentive to do so after 8 a.m. on Friday, right? Because OPEX is over. And that's what can then lead to a further squeeze higher. So that's one scenario. But of course, if we are just going to keep squeezing up and actually put them in the red, then eventually the longs who push price above 90k, well, they then close out. So that's how you can see the opposite actually play out, depending on whether we close below 90k at Friday 8 a.m. or whether we close above 90k at Friday 8 a.m. Because then it's the longs who are actually inorganic and need to close out if it's above, whereas it's the shorts who are inorganic and need to close out if we're below. So we'll be looking at either a short or long setup based on that as we head into Friday. And it's likely going to be around 90k. Again, it could happen around 85k if we get a big move today. I don't think that's likely, but you never know with markets. You never know with Bitcoin. You can never count any move out. So also prepared for those levels if those levels do come around 85 or 80. But it looks like 90 is the level that we're going to be messing around with today. So let's see. Can this uptrend stay strong, or are we going to get a push below at 8 a.m.? If so, this is where we look for longs on the reclaim, potentially. Again, if I get a setup, I'll let you guys know. And this is where we look for potential shorts if we are above and you see price rolling over. So that's what I'll be looking at in terms of Bitcoin. Now, of course, one thing to note, we are also heading into, let's get this chart over here. We are heading into the daily band. So if you get emails on, take this off. We are heading into what has been resistance over here. So, you know, if you are going to see that short squeeze higher and that long setup off the Deribit OpEx, then main trigger for bulls to actually have a move which could take us much higher is to start getting above these bands, start flipping them green, and maybe we can look at some sort of rally like we've seen over here, or even like we've seen over here. It doesn't have to be a huge rally. It doesn't have to be something like this where you go much higher, or something like this where you actually spend green bands marking Bitcoin up to new all-time highs. But if the bands go green, it does at least show we can see a few days of upside. So that's what you're looking at on the daily, because it is a point where we can reject. So that kind of confluences with the two scenarios that I mentioned here, with the orange path or blue path, as to whether we see a potential short opportunity or we see a potential long opportunity based on where we're at 8 a.m. on Friday. So that is the full update when it comes to Bitcoin. Of course, we are also trading into this daily order block. So this is just a short squeeze. This is so far a V reversal. Now, I think 90k is going to be a very key level here on Bitcoin. This OPEX level, of course, because as long as we stay above 90k in general, then this squeeze can go higher. I think once we start going below 90k, this is when maybe we actually form some sort of retest and we form a proper higher time frame bottom. And that can also be a sweep. That's another way you can see a higher time frame bottom. And the key is, whether it's a higher low or sweep, every single reversal starts with a V reversal. They all begin like this, which is a V. And sometimes they just go on higher. And maybe that is what happens. Maybe we do just flip the yearly open and continue on higher. If so, it's going to be inefficient and more likely to then fail later on and just be a lower high. But it starts with a V reversal. Even if you're going to get the higher low, you then just come lower after before going up. And if it's a sweep, you then go lower before going up. Point is, it all starts the same. It all looks like price is just going up only and V reversing. But it's not always that you actually do just get the follow through V reversal. And I think 90k is going to be that kind of midpoint level to determine whether we do see a just V reversal or not. And if we're below 90k and we start filling in this gap over here, then that's when we're more likely to actually see price go for either a higher low in the low 80s, which I think offers good risk to reward, or a sweep, and that's this setup over here. So not played out this week, but still can definitely be a valid setup that I'm going to be looking at in the coming weeks. So it is as follows. If we lose the 100-week EMA, then we reclaim the 100-week EMA, I'd be looking for longs. If we sweep the lows instead, and then we reclaim, I'd be looking for longs. So it's either that higher low scenario or it's a sweep scenario, which would be a trigger for me to say, okay, we could potentially be forming a high time frame bottom here, and that's efficient. That's what's going to lead to more of an extended rally. Of course, doesn't mean we can't just get this and then fail, and then I'd be less inclined to buy there. But if we do pull back to the lows for a proper retest, it wrecks anyone who's got too bullish over here, too excited now that we're above 90k, thinking we're back. It makes them question themselves over here, and that's exactly why it then does form a higher time frame bottom to actually rally. Because anyone putting their stops here, or here, or here, gets wrecked. And just by having a bit of patience and waiting for some sort of bottoming formation, some sort of confirmation, you can catch a really nice long. Maybe you do just get the red path, but that's the higher risk to reward move for me on the long side if we do get some sort of pullback. And that's what I'm looking at in terms of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin update is done. If we look at the wider market, dollar has lost 100. So that's why we're seeing this rally on Bitcoin right now, isn't it, guys? I told you. As soon as we lose 100, that key level, that's when you can see some more risk on in the markets. And we're getting this short squeeze now in Bitcoin. We're getting the short squeeze now in stocks. So 100 levels, very important. Get above there, then expect risk off again. Very simple. Expect risk on markets to go down like Bitcoin, like the stocks. While we're below 100, and especially if we continue breaking down towards the October form C level, then we can have more of a short squeeze. Expect higher in these markets. Very simple. And when it comes to gold, gold's also heading into resistance. So, if we see gold turn over here, this is when you then see Bitcoin in the short term have its best rallies and squeezes. So again, you need to watch. Does gold have strength and start filling in this H4 gap, which it rejected at? That's probably going to lead to downside and risk off. Or does it actually pull back, which is probably going to lead to actual risk on? So that's what I'd be looking at in terms of the markets. That is morning markets. If you guys enjoyed, drop a like, drop a subscribe, drop a comment. Let me know you value the content. I read them all. Super helps me out. And if you want to get in the private group, I know a lot of you are already in the school. Just drop me a message on Telegram. GM.